Hello everybody, and welcome to my assembly video. Sorry it took so long to get out, but here it is. So you can see me just diligently over-pouring my acetone into my little makeshift mixing chamber. Basically, I used a Coke can, turned it upside down, like rinsed it out first, of course, and I'm using it to fill with acetone and then cut little strips of plastic, which you can see. And the purpose of cutting the plastic is to make it small, easily dissolvable pieces, and I put it in there, and it dissolves into a paste over a little bit of time, and I use that to mix and spread on the pieces that I'm solvent welding together. And this is basically, well, it's the basics of solvent welding. So solvent welding is really handy for welding together pieces, like two pieces made out of plastic. You can do this with anything that is made out of ABS plastic, and that just, so happens to be what I'm using here, and it works out very nicely. So here I'm just kind of measuring out the pieces and making sure that they all fit, as well as sorting them so I know exactly which side is which, and I put the little Q-tip axles down. So here I'm stirring. I found a chopstick laying on the floor that was used. I washed that off and started using it. I just knew that it was probably going to be thrown away, so I figured nobody would mind if I used the chopstick. So I'm just basically stirring the mixture until all of the plastic is pretty much dissolved. The consistency of the mixture really doesn't matter as long as it's not really watery, because you don't really want to spend much of your time dissolving the piece that you're trying to weld. You really want the acetone to really be mixed thoroughly with the plastic, and the acetone will evaporate over time, so if you don't have enough plastic, you can just let the acetone evaporate. But that's also a little bit of a time constraint, because you only have a certain amount of time to use it before you have to add more acetone, or else the goop, I guess you could call it, gets way too thick to be spread onto anything. So as you can see here, I'm not really waiting for it to get super thick. I'm just kind of using it at a medium consistency. However, the best results are usually when you wait until it's, I don't know, the consistency of glue probably is about the best way to put it. But what I'm doing here is I'm actually kind of using an exploit. I'm actually getting some of the mostly dissolved chunks and adding that in as well. And so what I'm doing is I have located the part that I want to weld first, and I'm just putting that crap on all over, and then I do it the same on the other side. I'm sorry that the frame is not exactly on the piece that I'm doing right now. That was unintentional. I was looking at what I was doing and not paying that much attention to where the camera was. I thought I was in frame, but I was most certainly not. So here we go, and you kind of want to let that sit for a little while after you're done. But as you can see, I'm adding the mixture to the sides of this now, and that is so that it can fill in all the seams, and it also gives this really nice welded look when it's done. And when mine is painted all the way, it will really look kind of like the pieces were welded together. I may just sand it off and not go with the welded look, but it's great as an option when you're designing something that does have welds. So that half is just about complete. I'm just painting on the side a little bit, and now I continue with the other half. And as soon as I do something interesting, I will continue to narrate, but until then, here's some beautiful music. as you can see here, I'm actually using a very thin acetone mixture, and I'm just trying a couple different ways of solvent welding that involves using a lot more acetone and really is very, very ineffective. And you'll see in a minute that I had to end up redoing the whole thing. But what I'm doing is I'm taking acetone and kind of melting a bit of the side, and then I tried pressing the piece on. Now this could be a lot faster and use a bit more acetone, but in a second you'll see that it just came right off. So after a lot of solvent welding that I didn't end up showing on camera, I decided that I wanted to start the camera up again with the new pieces that had just come fresh off the printer. I had to take a break and get those printed. However, now that they are done, I can just finish this all up. So I am adding just another piece to the section that you saw me quit solvent welding. I resolvent welded that. And now I am just vigorously spreading the mixture all over all of the surfaces that are going to be in contact. Now this one had a bit of space in between the piece that I was welding to and the piece there. So what I did is I added a bit extra so that this way it would kind of seep around in all of the crevices and fill the empty space in between the model and the piece I was attaching. And that just helps me to have maximum adhesion, and it also helps me to, it helps it to have a really nice look as well, so that it's smooth all the way across instead of just having air bubbles and stuff on the sides. And there you can see that I spilled some of my mixture on the table, but it's okay, you can just wipe that stuff off and then the acetone will evaporate. It doesn't really have an effect on anything that's not ABS, or there's some other materials too, but I believe the table is very much not ABS, so I didn't really have to worry about that. I'm being very cautious to not get anything on my keyboard or my mouse pad. My mouse pad I moved off to the side, and my keyboard I just took off the table. I didn't want to risk it. I don't know what my keyboard is made out of, and I don't think it's ABS, but I did not want to take that risk and risk welding something to it or permanently damaging it with me spilling acetone all over the place. Here you can see me just cutting away all of the, well, you can't really see it, but that's what I'm doing in the background is I'm just shaping up the pieces that I printed. I have to get the base off that helps it stick to the printing bed, and then I have to trim off just the littlest bit of excess that is left on after I remove the base. And then once I'm done with that, I'm able to spread the mixture onto it and weld it on. So there you can see I am just filling in all of the seams on the screen portion, and I hadn't actually done that when I made this earlier. I decided to let the mixture dry before I started spreading on the outside. I was kind of experimenting because I'd only solvent welded a couple things before, and I hadn't quite gotten it down at that point, but you live and you learn, I suppose. Q-tips as well as my multi-tool and a bunch of solvent welding to make the closing mechanism. That was a bit of work, but it ended up being really, really nice, and it functions pretty much perfectly. I think that I'm going to probably keep it like this. I don't think I'm going to add any metal rods or anything like that, because just the Q-tip shafts work so incredibly well. They work better than I had ever thought. I just drilled out the holes just a little bit so that they would be the exact diameter of the Q-tip, and they actually fit in there perfectly. I don't need to glue them. I did on the lever of the clasp itself, but that's just because I knew that they would be undergoing a lot of motion, and I didn't want them to just fall out randomly if they ever became loose. Now the whole thing is finally done. I printed it and I solvent welded it myself. The last thing that I did that was kind of alteration to the original design is that I don't know how it was intended to remove a phone and put one back in and stuff, but I ended up altering the design just a little bit. Basically, I decided to not solvent weld two of the pieces together so that it could be taken off and the phone could be inserted, and I wanted that so that I could, I could be able to get my phone back when I was done using the Pip-Boy. So here's me just kind of showing that that one piece comes off and that I can stick the Pip-Boy in and that it clasps perfectly nicely, and it's really loose. However, it is pretty much fixed when you wear something like a sweater or when I put in padding finally. And the last thing to show is the little holotape cover. I'm going to be inserting all of that and the little light as well in the future, but right now this is as far as the project has gone. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys liked it. This is definitely a different video that I'm used to doing, and I'm going to try to do more videos as I make them instead of narrating them afterwards. But I mean, hey, if you guys like this, go ahead and let me know. But yeah, I will see all of you guys in the next one. Goodbye.